So I'll just proceed from where we are. I would share this screen. I hope you are together on that display.
Yeah.
So in the other class, we must have talked about this is documenting API and where we have API, and we said API mediates between the front end and the back end. We talked about the front end, whereby this is the interface. Now we are talking now about testing the developed app. You know, considering that you have developed the front end and the back end, and already you have an API in the middle, then it means after you have developed your app, you need to test the developed application. So
if I may ask.
Yes.
Okay, sir, like, is the backend always about the database and the...
No, any form of storage forms backend. Yes. Anywhere where we talk about retrieving data, or where we talk about any form of storage, no matter even if it is a server, we are pulling data from a server, that will be treated as the backend.
Okay.
So that the front end is the interface where the user is interacting with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we can proceed about testing applications, and we want to say that the reason we test application is for purposes of ensuring quality, and it is as a result of what we say quality assurance. So making one of the crucial steps in determining whether the application is reliable, whether it is stable, and general usability of developed application. So we want to see, once we tested the application, whether it is reliable, whether it can run or it can be sustained when performing tasks or ensuring stability, and again, user interactivity. How will the user perceive the application? How will the user interact with the application? Will it be very difficult for the user to use this application? That is what we talk about usability. So normally testing is in two categories. We either have manual testing or automated testing. So we want to say that normally automated testing, as it is automatic, gives accurate results. So the manual testing is whereby you will be needing to go through each and every section of the application, which might not cut across, understand the whole application as a whole. So we normally say automated testing is preferred over manual testing. So some of the major testing methods that any other mobile application goes through is functional testing, performance testing, user experience and interface testing, security testing, configuration, platform, recovery, beta, and the others. So I want us to appreciate these different types of testing methodologies, which you must have seen in software engineering before. I'm going to check this a little bit. You have done software engineering?
Yeah, we did it, I think 3.2.
Okay. So these things are quite familiar. So maybe I'll just go overview. So we start with functional testing. So functional testing is one of the important testing, and you need to check on the general functionality of the app. So you need to know whether the app functions as desired, if it is able to achieve its own objective. So you need to see whether the app functions as desired for all possible test cases. This functional test would entail installation and uninstallation. Does it behave normally when I install and uninstall? Does it reflect the required business features and functionalities. The input fields that users maybe are entering data. Does it able to capture the user's data and submit to whichever storage? So fields were input fields. You want to test possible interruption. For example, when there is some interference, or when there is other applications which are running in the device. Is there a possibility that it will interrupt each other? Such concerns. Necessary resources. You need also to test your application versus the available resources like cameras within your device. Again, I want to test whether I can scale up this application. That is why we are talking about testing the possibility for updates and distribution channel, so that if there is a new improvement in the app, then I need to give users updates. That's what I talk about in distribution channel. So that is functional testing and aspects within it. The other one is performance testing. So this performance testing checks the consistency in performance, especially when we have different loading, or when the load varies, or when there are exemptions. So you need to see the performance of your application, checking consistency in performance, like volume testing. You see, if you are talking about an application which uses sound, then it means that you need to test volume. You need to do load testing in terms of speed of the application when subjected to normal and extreme load. You see? So sometimes within your application, you might be having a situation where many users, remember this application, depending on the different types of platforms that are developed for. Sometimes you might realize that you're having 1,000 users, same time using this application. Will it be able to interfere each other in terms of load balancing? There is also stability testing to see whether the app behaves normally. There is also testing the response time of your application. In case I'm engaging with the application, is it responding, or is it hanging in that regard? I think you must have been in a situation whereby you want to power up an application, then when I realize the application is not powering up. So we want to check on the response time. There is also concurrency testing to see whether the app performance changes if multiple users are logged in, which we have explained. Battery usage, you need to check that again. So we have talked about functional testing, performance testing. We are now talking about user experience and interface testing. So I just want to talk about user interface to mean the interactivity with users. Is it easy for users to access the different sections within your application? So you need to check considering the overall expected application. That's why we are saying, does the final implementation match the envisioned proposed design? Does it reflect the already agreed design with customers? So in user interface, UI UX, that's the best way we describe user experience and interface testing. So UI UX checks test flows, visual interactions, and ease of navigation. Immediately, for example, a user logs into the application, then he moves to which section. After loading which application, he saves this, like that. So you need to see the flow of activities and the ease at which users interact with those particular activities. You also need to check on consistency in terms of fonts, design, and across the application. You also need to check on interface testing, ensuring issues like color scheme. I need an application which becomes appealing to a user. Once you power up an application like WhatsApp, can assure you that it is appealing, considering the color scheme, the design, and the entire look as a synergy with a theme of the application. That is why if you see a color like Facebook, for example, if you see a color which is blue like that, you can easily relate because of the theme of that application. Like, for example, CTech University, if I see some blue like that, I would almost relate considering the theme. So testing the interaction speed and navigation ambiguity. So I would want to create an application which has a specific theme, like that. I'm testing the interaction speed and also navigation ambiguity. Like I'm moving from one activity to another and one activity to another. How does it flow? Is it difficult to navigate from one section of the app to the another? You see? So in UI/UX, you also need to ensure design guidelines are strictly followed in final design of the application so that you don't deviate from already agreed design procedures. The other thing is after UI/UX, I hope you are still together that we started from functional testing, we moved to performance testing, UI/UX that we talk about user interactivity, documentation testing, very important. Now, I want to agree with you that in any application, you realize that it has its own accompanying documentation. The documentation becomes very important for those people who want to come and improve on that application. Or when you want users to be able to get advanced tasks, then they can follow the user manual or what we say user documentation. So normally this documentation has requirements, layouts, specification, and even client needs. So they should not be, you should ensure that there is no mismatch between the document prepared and the developed application so that you write exactly as it is in the application. So normally application documentation entails creation of test cases, test case analysis, testing for any discrepancies in documentation. You know, I want to check the documentation first as the app. That's why I talk about discrepancies in documentation, creation and analysis of navigation flow and screen layouts, so that user knows I log in. After I log in, I create maybe I take a photograph using this application. After taking a photograph, I save. You see, with that documentation, it can guide a user on how he or she interacts with the application. And generally checking on the allness of the design and resemblance with requirements mentioned in documentation. So you need to check, as I said, design versus the document again. Yeah. Then the other part is security testing, which is one of the key areas in any other application, whether not only limited to mobile application, but we always say that any application must take into consideration the security aspects. How will you ensure that users' data remain confidential? And how do you ensure that it remains secure from threats such as hackers? So normally security testing is done in many ways, which include threat analysis and testing for authentication of login credentials. As soon as a user logs in, are you assured that the user's data is protected? So you need to subject it to threat analysis. Try to guess these passwords. Will it enable you to log in? Can you simulate a scenario where a user has logged into the system? So that's what we talk about in threat analysis. There is also vulnerability analysis. And you understand when I talk about vulnerability, I mean weaknesses in the system. So I just want to check the loopholes in the application, whether there is a room or corridor for an attack within my application. That's why I do vulnerability analysis. There is also testing for proper platform and secure server-side controls, whether you have enough controls within your server. So that is very important. Checking for potential aspects such as hackers and testing for potential threats from any permission to be given to applications. Those ones are security testing, configuration testing. So configuration is the actual performance of the application, as simple as that. When I talk about configuration testing, I mean actual performance of the application. So normally check on various devices and detects any missing features at all if there is any missing features. So in configuration testing, I'll be looking for, sometimes you might want an application which actually accesses the internet. How assured are you when you're using that application that it can be able to assure on has enough features, for example, for browser configuration and compatibility, database configurations, because sometimes I would want an application to access the database. How secure, or how are you ensuring that there is secure database configuration? Through also ensuring network connectivity and configuration, operating system configuration, and many, many others. That's what we talk in configuration testing. There is also platform testing. Now, you need to agree what we have a number of platforms. So considering the different hardware features, it becomes necessary for mobile application development process to include platform testing. Considering the different platforms, remember we talked about hybrid, native apps, and many other platforms. So you need to test platform compatibility for the different operating systems. For example, I was building application for iOS or Apple, and the one which I built for Android. Is it compatible to the individual platforms? Versus also client, when we talk about the one which uses a server, client-side process. How is it compatible with client-side process? If it is an application which uses the browser, mobile application testing on various devices also ensures device compatibility across multiple devices. Does it support almost all device hardwares? You see, remember this hardware comes from different manufacturers. Are you assured that it can be able to support, or that application is able to be supported across different platforms and many other things? There is also recovery testing, which is ability. When I talk about recovery, I mean ability of your application to recover from error or failure. So how is it easy, or how does your application recover from failure? Considering whether it's an hardware or software failure. So even in any issue, if there is any issues in communication of the app, then it becomes very important to conduct recovery tests to see, in case of any eventuality of hardware or software failure, how is it easy for it to recover? So you need to test the application failure mechanism, time and methods on when the hardware misbehaves or fails. So your application need to be able to understand or be configured in such a way that when there is hardware or software failure in that regard, then how is your application able to respond to that? There is also beta testing. So beta testing is holistic approach whereby you test the overall performance in terms of reliability. You also talk in terms of security, functionality, and compatibility. It is like a summary of this one. So you just need now to do beta testing. That is why we have an earlier version of an application known as a beta version. So this is the overall performance of the application in summary. So you test the application with number of users, considering reliability and behavior of application, response time of your application, testing the application for users of a large demographic coverage to any loopholes. Kindly mute yourself as soon as you join, please. There's some sound and interference. This is Okolia. Okay, so we have talked about beta testing. Then we move to certification testing. So just as the name suggests, certification, we certify against standards. So we realize that application need to meet the various Play Store and App Store standards or requirements. So that's why we do certification testing. So this testing is the final and important testing step, which include checking licensing. Of course, when I want to certify my app, I want to see whether it is an agreement with the licenses provided by Google, whether the application development follows all terms of use, and violation of terms of conditions stated by Play Store. So you need to see whether it meets the agreed licensing standards. That's what we talk about certification testing. This takes me to testing phases of testing. So before I proceed into that, I would want to know whether we are still